the Process Podcast. Today we have some very special hosts. Today's topic is how do you prevent bioburden in instrument trays? And today our guests are Selendra Barefield and Pernell husband. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Good to be here.
All right, all right. So I have a joke or a quiz joke. The however you want to take it. So why didn't the invisible man take the job? Why did he turn down the job? Why didn't the invisible man take the job?
Pernell, you can have that one.
I appreciate that. Selendra, thank you so much for giving that to me. I appreciate it. Why didn't the invisible man take the job?
Yes, why didn't he?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm not
You're
sure.
not sure? Well,
Because he couldn't see it.
That's what I was
They
thinking.
couldn't
close,
see
close,
him.
close. He couldn't see himself doing it.
Oh.
Okay. He couldn't see himself. I get it.
Yes, yes.
Good one.
Okay, we need a sound effect for that type
Yeah,
of joke.
oh
Right?
man,
Right, a
no
sound
sound
effect,
effects.
yeah.
Yeah, let me get my sound effects on board here.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, what?
He finding one too.
Yeah.
There it is.
So that was a good
Oh
one.
my
So if you didn't laugh at the joke, well, hopefully you laughed at me. So we have Pernell here. So Pernell, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're new to the show. I'm very excited to have you on. You have a wealth of knowledge, and um, you're a nice guy.
Well, listen, first of all, I want to thank you very much for having me on your platform. The buzz, as they say, is on, and everybody is talking about the process. So I want to congratulate you, first of all, on this platform and for having me on.
Thank you.
Best of luck with it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So you bet. So I'm a Navy trained surgical technician. I was in the U.S. Navy for 15 years. As a medical corpsman and, like I said, as a sterile processing technician. In the Navy, there's no such thing as sterile processing technicians. The surgical technicians are the sterile processing technicians. So we take care of our instrumentation after surgeries. After I left the Navy, I went into the world of managing sterile processing departments in the Southern California area. Did that for several years. And had a stint in sales for a minute, sold some medical devices, and then did that for about 3 years, and then came back to sterile processing as a consultant, started a sterile processing consulting firm, and that's what I do.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. And we all know CC, aka Selendra Barefield, aka I on sterile processing, aka the new thing on Facebook,
All over the
aka
place.
everything you need to know about sterile processing.
I'm just a researcher. I spend a lot of time obviously reading and researching. So I'm I guess a lifetime learner. That's all.
Yes.
Yes.
And I like that. You remind me of how I used to be. I don't. Yeah, I used
You're
to
not
be
a
on
reader.
top
You're
of
not a
it.
researcher anymore.
I got so much pushback. I kind of step back. I step back. I got so much pushback. I step back because
Yeah.
sometimes when you're on the latest thing and everybody's telling you we're not ready for it yet, you
Yes.
kind of like, you know what? Maybe I should slow down a little bit. So I slow down a little bit. So
And that happens. So
Yeah.
You get that pushback sometimes. So.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I'm getting back because Selendra is inspiring me definitely.
Good.
Yeah. That's how I used to be. Uh, so, anything, guys, on your mind in terms of just basic topics? Anything you see anywhere? I know, Selendra, you have your news. You could use anything besides that that happened today, recently. Pernell, anything you have on your mind? You just want to get out?
Well, okay. I'm thinking on my mind. I was listening to a podcast because I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm not reading and researching. And I will say one thing they have said, they kind of made a distinction between managers and leaders and the importance, especially when COVID-19 happened. You were able to find out who were the managers and who were the leaders. And then you have those transformational leaders is what we actually need now. So I started thinking more about that. But what that also looked like is, it comes with sharing their roles, sharing their power, shared responsibility, cross-functional teams, and things like that. And I'm like, they were talking on the podcast, and I'm like, I didn't even care what the company was or where they were located. They could have been on Mars. I'm like, I want to work there because I want to work
Hmm.
workplace where I'm dealing with a transformational leader, somebody that's inspiring, and somebody that helps me fulfill my own personal values and goals and needs like that. So that kind of stuck with me today. That's
Hmm.
all.
Nice, nice, nice. Pernell?
Yeah, that was a good share.
Thank you.
That transformational leadership is really so important, especially in times where it calls for it, right? I mean, if there was ever a time for, progressive transformational leadership, it certainly has been the past year and these current times that we're in, for sure. What's been on my mind lately is, just the sheer scale of people that have been affected by, this COVID-19 pandemic. The country passed a milestone here recently where, over 500,000 people, lost their battle with this disease.
Mhm.
And it just reminds me of the fight that we're in sterile processing. That's our fight. We're a part of that fight. We fight against microorganisms and that whole world. We're intimately familiar with that. So that loss has been on my mind, and I just am looking forward to getting back to normal. You know, um, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that was a sad time. I know a few people who had the virus. Most of them recovered, and
Mm,
but I know a lot of people that lost family members right out the blue. No,
yeah,
just a few days notice, and then the family member was gone. So I
Yeah.
really sympathize with that.
yeah.
What's on my mind today is just communication. Um,
Oh,
Communication, all aspects of life, cell processing in general. Mm, if you want things to work right, you have to communicate, and a lot of people don't get that. They think it's a big mystery, and it has to be a project with 20 steps. But if you simply communicate what's going on at the time, that solves so many issues. And I feel a lot of people don't grasp that, and they take it in some areas, but in other areas, they lapse on it or they take it for granted. So just
I agree
communication.
with that. But I think the biggest problem is, wait, my charger fell out my computer. People always say, it's just like people tell you to eat, eat healthy, and it's like, okay, what does that mean and what does that really look like? So people say we need to communicate better, but it's like, well, how do I communicate and what does that even look like? So
Mhm.
can you give us like maybe an idea of how to communicate even just with the people in our department?
If it's to me it's simple. If it affects you and it affects someone else, you should communicate.
Right.
Okay, so if okay, let me put it in a simple like everyday. Okay, if you're driving down the street,
Yes.
all right, and you have four cars pulling up to the stop sign at one time,
Yes.
who goes first? You honk your horn or you flash your lights? Hey, or you're gonna have a four-car pile up in the middle of an
That's
intersection.
true.
All right.
So, so you have to communicate. It's simple. Like flash your lights, honk your horn. Hey, you go first. Hey, you go first. Then it's simple. Or else,
Okay.
you're gonna have a fender bender for no reason.
That
Now,
is
I thought you
true.
were going. I thought you were going. You stop first or you stop second. So I mean, simple communication it
Yeah,
helps out a lot. It helps out a
I
lot.
like
As
that.
long as you know something that might help somebody else out, or you know something that will affect someone else, it's simple. You have to communicate it. Was that
Yeah.
a good
And
analogy or?
I like
I think that was a great analogy. Yeah. Yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah. I was just going to add, leadership is also really critical when it comes to establishing how we communicate in this department. Because, you can't assume, I as a manager or as a director, I can't assume everybody knows how to communicate,
Right.
how they're supposed to and on what level, so on and so forth. So as a leader, it's really important that I understand that communication is key to how we get things done. There's an appropriate way to do it, and here's how we're going to do it. So setting expectation, right, from a leadership standpoint, because then everything should flow from that.
I agree with that too. And I want to add on to communication. I don't want to stay here too long, but
Mhm.
I had a situation with me personally where I communicated at the wrong time. So,
Mm.
we have the huddles, and huddles are usually just for a few minutes of passing on information because usually it's shift exchange or what have
Yeah.
you. And I brought up a topic that was going to take longer than those few minutes. So
Mm,
it's important too that if you want to verbally communicate, that you're communicating at the right time and also to the right person.
mm, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I do agree with you. Um, let's get
Too much
into what
agreement.
is too much agreement. Too much agreement. You're right. You're right. Okay. So what if I okay, how's the breakdown in communication? So we're all in the same in service together. We're all in the same meeting, right? You
Right.
heard what I heard, right?
Yes.
Why do I have to tell you or remind you when all of us have the same information? You pass the course, I pass the course. You have maybe two more certifications than I have. Why do I have to tell you how to take the load out? Why do I have to tell you how to assemble a tree? Why do I have to tell you that you have to soak your instruments to flush and brush? Like, why is that important? You know, you should know it. I know it. You should know it. Like, why am I
You
wasting my
got the
time?
job, right? You working here, right? You get the
Right.
paycheck. What
Yeah,
you
you
doing?
right. Like, why is that important? Like,
This ain't Walmart.
you make it more than me actually. So, I'm losing there. So, you
Well, you
know.
have to. I mean, because people learn differently. So somebody, you may have to communicate differently. Some people, you can give them verbal directions and they get it. And some people, you have to write it down and they get it. And some people, you have to show them. So you have to figure out, what's their communication style to get the message across to them. So yeah, you probably do have to show them because when you sent the email, they didn't get
Yeah.
No, but we were in the same in service. We were like you were right next to me. Why do I have to show like
And you know what? I get that, working with different personalities can be trying. And there are
Yes,
those who, yeah, they right there, but they're somewhere else.
that's
And
true.
then, they're just not 100% focused, they somewhere else.
Mhm,
But I think collectively we have to remember why we're in this fight, right? It's about the patient,
yeah, true.
right? That's number one. And so, you know, all of our communication, right? Most of our communication in that workspace should be about the work. And the
Right.
work is ensuring that our patients do not leave the hospital, you know, with a hospital acquired infection.
Yeah.
So I guess communication in a sense, from my point of view anyway,
Right.
um, has to be clear, has to be direct.
Yes.
And if somebody missed something, then, yes, we all do have an obligation to make sure they're filled in and they know what's going on. Because again, it may not be about him or her, but it's
Right.
about that patient, our patient.
That that is true.
Yes.
But I will add though, Sterile MD, that if you do find yourself, and that's another, it's kind of a question too. If you find yourself constantly reiterating the same thing or retraining the same person over the same situation, then perhaps they're not a fit. And I think that sometimes we have to come to that realization, like this job may not be for that person.
But what if that person just fed up? Like, I'm just fed up. I've been making 14.75, and this guy came in last year. He's making 16.50, and I know everything. He puts like 10 trays together on every shift. Like, why am I trying to help him out? Like, where's my, where's my money? Where's, what do I get? So what do you, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
I've been doing doubles, singles. I stay lit when you need me to. Um,
I
I
sleep
put
in the
out
break room.
right.
Right.
I clean the racks up. You need those auto trays done. I put them out like when I'm gonna get a break. Like the
I
agencies coming
always,
in.
I always initial my BIs on time.
Right.
Right.
I do
Yeah.
everything you want me to do. Why can't I get ahead? Like what? Like what's the problem? Like certain people like that. Like I believe another reason for communication too, especially from a leadership standpoint. When you see your top performers unsatisfied, you need to give them special attention. I know, like, we don't want to give preference to everyone, but your top performers, when they're slacking, or when you see, okay, all of a sudden they're coming in late, all of a
Yeah.
sudden their trick counts down, all of a sudden things they used to do and sign off on, they kind of slacking. You kind of have to take the initiative and approach those people and say, hey, I noticed like you used to come in at that you used to come in 5 minutes early. Now you coming in on the dot. Like
Yeah.
you used to do all the eye trays and all the vascular trays. Now you only stick to the orthopedic and the general. Like what's
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
you have to kind
What's
of
really
be
going on?
yeah, you kind of have to initiate that contact, and not wait for it to blow up and somebody to come into your department and say, hey, you know what, I got 250 down the street. I'm gonna take that other job.
Yep.
And then you try to explain to them it's 250, but you have to drive half an hour more. But it's like
When
no,
it gets to the stage where you're talking about gas, you've already lost them.
right,
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
You let
So
it
it's
get to
like
that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
yeah, it's 250, but they're not living because of the 250. They're living
Right.
because they're just not happy there. They're
Yeah.
not. They don't feel appreciated. So I feel you gotta, as a leader, you gotta recognize your team and take that initiative and communicate. You know, don't assume everything is working fine because the OR the operating room is happy.
That's right.
Or the ancillary departments are happy and giving you compliments. Things could be crumbling under your feet, and then when it gets too late, you're going to be in the one in decon or assembling trays,
By
and then
yourself, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and
On
then
weekends,
on weekends,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
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 Yes.
So
I think D,
yeah.
I think you hit it. I think you hit the nail on the head here, man. Look, when I walk into a department as a consultant, I can tell in 2 days
Hmm.
what kind of leadership is present in that department based on the kind of communication that's going on or the lack thereof.
Okay.
It becomes very clear, what kind of leadership. So you're absolutely right. Leadership should have their pulse on their department. They should know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
You should be the kind of leader where people are comfortable enough to come to you. Hey, can
Yeah.
I talk to you for a few minutes? This and this is happening. This is going on, right? And you're absolutely right. You know who your strong performers are, you know who your leaders are, and you know the people you can count on. And you have to have a really good rapport and a good relationship with them. And you said, keep them happy. Well, you better keep them happy. I
Yeah.
mean, those are either your leaders or
Hmm.
social leaders in the department. So it's important that you know what's going on and you have a really good relationship with those key people. Because
Yeah.
again, if you're a good leader, you don't want to lose good people
Right.
because
Hmm.
of your lack of leadership. So I see all of this through a leadership lens. That's where I'm coming from.
Hmm. I definitely that's one point I definitely agree on.
Oh, you
And
agree again?
yeah, I
Just that
I
one point,
agree.
though.
Yeah,
Just
just that
one.
one point. I
He
don't want
didn't
to.
agree with the last point.
I didn't. I
And
can't.
you heard him right. He was very clear. Well, that's
Right.
one point.
Uno.
Yeah, I can't.
Uno.
So guys, y'all want to move on? Let's move on to the
Yeah, we can
next
move
thing.
on.
What's bioburden? What's it? So let me pull up something here on bioburden. I did a little research here. I
Okay.
think it's up to date.
Because really,
Mhm.
I thought bioburden originally when I was in sterile processing, I just thought it was just dirt. I just say, oh, if it's something's dirty, then it's bioburden. If it's lint, tape, gooey stuff, it's bioburden.
Yeah, true. True. No, 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 no,
No,
no.
yeah, you disagreeing. See, there you go. See, I gave you something
True,
that you
true.
cannot agree on. That's not true.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not.
No.
Yeah. So I'm trying to pull up my definition here. I'm
Just
having a little
remember,
hard time.
there's a
So
key word in that phrase, right? Bioburden, right?
Yes.
Bio
yes.
referring to biology,
Yes.
meaning life, right?
Yes.
So it
Mm-hmm.
would have had to been something organic,
Yes.
blood, tissue, and I think the other term we give to lint and those other kinds of things. I forget what the book says, but foreign objects.
Yes.
Foreign objects, yes. Bioburden is normally defined as the number of bacteria living on a surface that
Yes.
has not been sterilized.
Yes.
So that's the simple definition.
Right.
Yes.
So I worked at a facility. Let me tell you, I'll give you a backstory. I
Okay.
worked at a facility one time, and their way of determining what was bioburden was basically, okay, this is what I got. I got this. Is this bioburden foreign object? What is this? And then if enough people say, yeah, that's bioburden, they would write it up as bioburden. There was no test done, especially if it was red. Oh my god. If it was red, it could be it could be
Right.
something from a shirt, a tag, a pin. If it was
Right.
red, they would say it's bioburden. But I told them like, no, blood doesn't. They'll think it's blood. Like I'm telling them like, no, blood doesn't stay red after being autoclaved.
Yeah.
It changes color to a dark brown to a black color. So that can't be blood. But they were convinced, oh, this is definitely blood. This is blood. Like this is nothing else. It has to be blood. So just a backstory. I try to put something in place where we could actually have some consensus or a guideline as to when we find something, what
Right.
do we look for to determine whether it's bioburden, a foreign object, or what have you. And there was nothing done. But I definitely feel if you want to have your numbers accurate, um, bioburden definitely comes from either in the individual preparing the tray, you could have a hair in the tray, or the previous patient or patient that actually that instrument was used on.
Right.
Um, so it can bioburden is not. I know it is not. It's not a pen. It's not your badge. It's not a piece of lint. Um, it's not a wrapper.
Right.
Which those find themselves in the trees more often than we think.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of departments misclassify bioburden and increase their numbers in a negative way, trying to combat bioburden. I think it's a peer, it's a pressure thing too. Um, People automatically assume, hey, it's bioburden because bioburden is the word that's used for a tree that's is not sterile, basically. So, what do you guys think?
Oh, Pernell, go.
Well, I mean, for me, you were talking about being at that facility where they really didn't have a process in place, and it was kind of
Mhm.
a voting type situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see that a lot. I mean, the way it's really supposed to work, as you guys know, is you at your station. Um, when those instruments come over to the clean side and you're assigned or whatever, the first thing that should happen is those instruments, each and every one of them should be properly inspected. We all know that, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be a protocol, whether you're using cards or whatever, a
Mhm.
book, the computer. The instruments need to be checked for that bioburden, right? And there should be something that tells you, like this thing maybe that you came up with, D. There should be something that says clearly, when you find this, it's this, and here's what you do,
Right.
Right.
right? There shouldn't be any guessing, right? There should be It should be a protocol. This is something that should be in the policies and procedures having to do with inspecting surgical instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think of, when I hear that, I just think of the process. People need to know what to do. They can't be guessing. And then again, that goes back to leadership.
Yeah.
That should be in place.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I understand what you're saying too, Sterile MD, because when I first started in sterile processing, anything that was, I guess, outside of just the natural instrument itself was all classified as bioburden. So I will admit I was part of that crew too, because if it was something outside of just that instrument or whatever, I called it bioburden
But
until
let me
I
ask y'all this. Why does it matter whether it's bioburden or something else? It's something that shouldn't be in that tray, right?
right.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just wondering why some facilities look at that, more serious than, say, a hairpin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the tray is on sterile.
Right.
Right. Right.
It doesn't really
Mm,
matter.
It
yeah.
it does. It does actually.
Why?
Because it
In what
speaks to
way?
your
How?
process. It speaks to your process. So
Mm,
if you're having bone from a near revision come back
Mhm.
up to the next day's near revision, that means your process is flawed. So you have to work on your process. Hence the show, the process. So what is your process? So okay, the easiest thing to do is to blame the technician. Oh, well, that person had 2 issues last month, or that person has 3 issues. But if your process works, that person wouldn't have those issues. So you have to. That's why there's no one size fits all for any sort of processing department. Your process has to fit your department. If you know your technicians are poor inspectors, you got to change your process based on the people you have working for you. So if you have, okay, I worked at a place which small hospital. Their decontamination area basically had.
By the way, the small hospitals they have
Yeah, yeah,
challenges,
yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, no, no. The small
right?
hospitals have the best
Yeah.
outcomes from
Yes.
my experience. The small hospitals
Mhm.
have the least bioburden, the least tray issues,
Oh wow.
the least missing instruments. It's totally like no tracking system, but
Because you have like 7 trays, right?
no, 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 no. But the thing is, yeah, you may have less trees, but the thing is, it's so easy to memorize those trees. It's like if something is missing and it's in digging time, you're like, oh, the Army Navy's on there. Let's go
Right.
back to the room. Hey, we missing the 2 Army Navy. How do you know? I know the tree.
Right.
Now if you have 1,000 trees, you may know the majority. If you're missing a
Yeah.
quarter of the tree, you might know.
Right.
Okay, a portion of this tree is not here. But
Right.
okay, let me get back to the story. So the decontamination sink was basically a double kitchen sink.
Mm.
So it was about 8 inches deep, a pipe in the middle,
Wow.
and stainless steel, maybe a foot wide on each side. So you couldn't put a tray in there.
Mm.
You couldn't soak a tray in there.
So you had to
You
kind of
had
tip
to
it in.
spray it down or dump the instruments in. That's
We
how
don't dump
small.
instruments.
We
Very
don't dump it.
damaging, right?
We
Very
don't dump
Yeah,
damaging for the
instruments.
yeah, yeah. Oh, you had
damage.
to. You had to uh uh take the instruments out the tree and place them into the sink.
Yes.
All right, that sounds better. So, so, like, yeah, that
No
that goes against
dumping.
a lot of what we're taught in cell processing. But you couldn't soak a tray as recommended in the IFUs. There was no sonic. You couldn't sonic. There was your lumens flushing and brushing underneath the surface of the water. That was kind of null and void because certain instruments couldn't fit in the sink to soak, and you couldn't brush the tips. You could, if you push the brush through the top end, it had to be outside the sink, and then maybe the distal tip would be inside the sink, and
Wow.
then you'd probably have to have water running the tap head was so low. It was basically a kitchen sink. So
Yeah.
Wow.
so that
Inadequate.
you had to, you know, run the instruments side by side, and it
Bad
was a
setup.
mess.
Bad setup. Yeah.
Very bad setup. And the space between decontamination and prep and pack was a line on the floor where you had to wear PPE if you're going to cross that line. So
Oh
if you jump
wow.
that line, it was going to be an issue. But stuff's flying everywhere, stuff splashing. But no, you couldn't step over that line because you'll be, that is against the law. You can't pass that line. And eventually, I brought some of those things up, but it wasn't my doing. They kind of knew they had to make some changes. But just on that point, like in terms of bioburden, like if you don't pay, the important thing is inspection and then just the process. It doesn't matter how big your facility is or how small it is. Once your process is working, um, with the limited um, infrastructure you have, that's a winning process, and every process isn't the same at every facility. Some places I know have huge washers, and the bioburden rates are ridiculous. And some places have maybe one washer and they squeeze everything through, and the bioburden is like almost like maybe every couple months you might get one kind of little bit of rust on something. Somebody might say, "Oh no, I haven't seen this before. Let me send it back." You know. So yeah, I think it's all about the process and the process for your specific department, and that's where I'm at on that.
Well,
So
see, I'm
I
going back to
think you're.
Pernell. I get his point because it really doesn't matter what it is if it shouldn't be there. So that still kind of plays to your whole thing with the process. Because if it is my
So
badge or
no,
my hair or whatever fell in the tray, then it's something wrong with the
absolutely.
process there.
yeah,
That
but
We
tray.
just
what?
give the bioburden a boogeyman name, like it's the boogeyman.
Well, I think part of that, Selendra, is probably because bioburden is, somebody's tissue or whatever, so people
Yeah.
like, look, listen, we should operate in an environment in sterile processing of zero tolerance for inadequately reprocessed trays. That's just the bottom line,
Yeah.
no matter what the issue is. Yes, Dee is absolutely right for bringing this topic forward today. Dirty trays is a major issue, and not only does it speak to the process, like Dee was saying, but I want to add a couple of things to that.
Hmm.
And again, where I'm coming from, leadership,
Yes.
consultant, right? That
Yes.
30,000 feet view, right?
Yes.
An expectation has to be set for what the desired outcome needs to be,
Okay.
right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
plain and simple, right?
Yep.
Who's
Plain
that
and
coming
simple.
from? Who's that coming from? That's coming from leadership,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We have a zero tolerance policy in this department for inadequately reprocessed trays.
Right.
Okay, so I can't just say that and throw it out there. Now I have to make sure that my people are properly resourced. Do
Yes.
they have what they need? Do they have the appropriate sized brushes?
Right.
Do they have the right education? Do they have the IFUs in the department that are critically important to decontamination and inspection, right?
Yes.
Is all of that available? So,
Hmm.
like Dee said, not only do you have the process, but you have to have a set expectation from your management that this is how we roll it. This is how
Right.
we do business. There will not
Right.
be any dirty trays.
Right.
Hmm.
Now, I need to make sure that people are appropriately trained, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
You may have
Yes.
passed the test, but that doesn't mean anything to me,
Right.
right? You
Right.
passing that test says you passed the test. That's all it says,
Yep.
Hmm.
right? So I need to
Mhm.
make sure that if I'm having those kinds of issues, that my in-servicing and my training is focused towards, that decontamination area, right?
Right.
So I think D is right on with the process, and it depends on the process.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that expectation, hey, this is how we doing business,
Hmm.
this is how everyone will work in the decontamination area.
Right.
You're not going to skip this sink,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Um, that needs to be said. And
Right.
then the employees need to be properly trained and properly resourced. One other thing I'd like to add, I know I'm being a little long-winded,
No, 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 you're fine.
No.
is managers and leadership, especially in the decontamination area, but everywhere in the department, need to make sure that they're conducting audits, right?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Because if you're serious about what you're doing, there's a right way to do it.
That's
And
right.
conducting audits to make sure that people, and not announced audits. I mean, me having one of my supervisors walk into decon for the next 4 hours, standing there with a clipboard,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the process.
Mm-hmm.
Does this person know what they're doing? Are any
Mm-hmm.
shortcuts being taken? So again, it's a whole process. And
Mhm.
so looking from this view, process is important, like Dee said, for
Yeah.
sure, but that expectation is key. If that expectation isn't consistently coming from that manager or that supervisor preaching, we will have no incomplete trays. If y'all need instruments, somebody need to let me know.
Right.
So I think it takes all of that.
Right.
So, oh, Selendra, you want to go? I'll have something else I want to say. So, based on what you just said, auditing, what specific type of audit would you recommend? Because if your audit isn't effective, you could just you could simply be wasting your time um, equating processes to policies that don't work. So, what do you look for in your audits? You look for defects, or you look for on the efficiency standpoint? Do you look for competence, or what are you looking for exactly?
So let's define what an audit or an auditing tool is, right? It's simply a very quick way. Let's say you have 6, 8, 10 check boxes, right?
Hmm.
And let's take, for example, decontamination, right?
Hmm.
So if I want to audit the decontamination process, I'm looking to see whether or not our technicians are adhering to best practices when it comes to working in the decontamination area. First of all, appropriate PPE. You know how some folks are, right?
Yes.
They like to wear their stuff how they like to wear it, right?
Hmm.
But again, we want to make sure that people are wearing their PPE in the appropriate way, right? If there's a dispensing pump at that sink, an automatic dispenser, or whether they're mixing the detergents themselves, we want to see how they're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sally could just be, all right, that looks like enough,
Yep.
and Susie has her own little measuring cup that she stashes over here that she
Yep.
uses, right?
Hmm.
It's critically important if you want clean instruments coming through on the processing side that people are effective on the decontamination side. And part of them being as effective as they can be is leadership being there and monitoring or auditing the process.
Yeah.
So, what you're doing is you're looking to make sure that those critical steps are being followed, right? And you
Right.
have it on a checklist. So, for instance, Celindra's in decon. All right, I got her name. This is what I'm looking for. Boom, she did that. She's
Hmm.
brushing under the water.
Right.
Boom. She's using the appropriate sized brushes.
Hmm.
Boom. She's scrubbing every instrument.
Hmm.
Boom. She's using the sonic. So those critical steps that are important to having clean instruments. Yeah, those audits are critically important. And if audits are not happening where you are, I
That's
look
why.
back to leadership, and
Yep.
no wonder you have problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe some people mistake audits for micromanaging for audits. Like they will stand over and watch you and think, okay, I'm going to audit this, but it's not really an audit. You're basically trying to dictate every movement of that individual, and that it's not training either. Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I think people mistake micromanaging for auditing, and I think there's a, a distinct difference between the two.
I
So,
agree.
yeah. So that's one thing.
Wow. I
I
don't
agree.
mind, me personally, I don't mind an audit or I don't mind someone watching me because I mean, my whole goal is to be the best I can be in what I do.
Mm,
So I'm always looking for suggestions. But I have a problem with it when like you're grading me and you know I don't have what I need. You know what I mean? That's when I guess it becomes
yes.
micromanaging. Like, you know I don't have what I need. So why are you bothering me or bugging me? I'm doing the best I can. You know we got 50 case cards, you know what I'm saying, in decon. You know
Right.
I don't have this, you know I don't have that. And here you are auditing me? Like, how do you the nerve of you? I
Right.
think
Right.
that's when it really becomes the problem because it's wonderful in a perfect world that I'm able to do everything I'm supposed to do. But then it goes back to what Pernell says too. It goes back to leadership, and they have these unrealistic expectations for people
Mm,
that's in sterile
Yeah.
processing. But we would love
Well,
to do this,
look,
right? But we can't.
your expectations are definitely going to be unrealistic. If you're auditing people, they don't have the right training.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
They don't have all of the brushes and tools that they need to clean the instruments with. Nobody is enforcing inspection, right?
Yes.
I know what inspection is, right? Yeah, you put them instruments together as quickly as you can,
Yes.
right? To get them
Yes.
out, right? So again, from my point of view, it's all leadership.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we go into hospitals, when I go into a hospital who didn't pass a JCO survey or they want to do a mock survey before JCO or whatever, one of the first things we do is we sit down with that management team and we try to assess where are they?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Because it all stems from that. The
Yeah.
communication in the department, D, how the department is resourced to the training. All of that is, you won't have a lot of bickering that you have in sterile processing departments if you had leadership that was more in tune to what was going on and were
Mm.
doing their jobs more
Mm.
effectively.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
I
And for me,
agree.
that's where it stems from. It starts there.
Yes.
So I would say, again, going back to Dee's point on, dirty instrument trays, that
Yes.
process is really important. But part of that process, again, should be auditing, and
Hmm.
managers have to make sure that their people have the tools and the training that they need to be effective. You can't have unrealistic expectations, like Selendra said.
Yep.
Yes, yes, yes. Great point. Great point. So
Yep.
I think also another tool is your competencies. If your competencies are so vague, where in Dick and Tam especially, or anyway, if your competencies are a one size fits all, and they're not intricate to your specific department and what you do, I think you're missing touch points or points of communication you could address to ensure that your team is performing every task the way it should be within your department. So I definitely feel competencies are a major part. And some departments I know, the competency time, all they do is like, okay, I'm gonna watch you for 2 minutes and I'm gonna check you off because I need this done because
Yep.
this is the month it's
Because
supposed to
they
get
wait
done.
till the last minute,
Right,
Mhm.
because
right,
they're
right.
busy going to meetings
Yes,
Yep.
and
yes,
doing
yes.
other important stuff.
Right.
Yep.
And then the guy who's been in the department for 20 years forgot, the intricacies of how to clean a tray and
Mhm.
how to assemble and how to properly decontaminate, when to sonic, what to flush, brush, how to
Yeah.
clean. He forgot that. Over the years his skills drifted to the point of, I need to get this done faster. So
Yep.
he kind of skipped some steps, and now he's more efficient. He will knock decontam out quickly,
Oh yeah.
but there are a couple steps he missed. Over time, he's over time he's basically gauging what he could get away with.
Yep.
So okay, I don't really sonic, so it's been a few months. Nobody mentioned that, so okay, I'm just gonna cut
Yep.
that out. Okay, my water temperature is like 50. No one's paying
Yep.
attention to that. So okay, so it doesn't matter. I could have that one sink for the whole night, so that's fine. Um, I only have one brush, but I kind of get by
Yep.
because the smaller lumens, I just flush that with some water and I'm good.
Yep.
Um, I don't really soak everything. I just
Nope.
basically wash the dirty instruments and I put them back in
Gotta
the tray
cut
and I
them
put it on
corners,
the
man.
rack.
Yeah.
We got a lot of cases. Gotta speed this up.
Right.
Ain't
And then they
nobody,
have the
ain't nobody
huddle, and
shouting
they
at
like, we
me.
have bioburden. Like, what's the
Ain't
Right,
got
right,
writing me
bioburden?
up.
right. Exactly,
Ain't nobody
exactly.
calling me
So,
slow.
right.
Right.
So,
That is
oh,
the truth. Especially as a traveler, when we get out there, traveler, people expect you to go in there and bust decon out. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you should not be considered slow. So yeah.
right.
yeah. Nobody wants to hear that on average, every year in the United States, over 100,000 people die because of hospital-acquired infections.
That's right.
Mm,
You see, that's what we're up against. And if leadership isn't talking about that and those kinds of things, this is all happening in a vacuum, right? So here's why we're here,
mhm.
to prevent injury and death.
Right.
Over 95% of surgical instruments are reusable, right? That's why
Right.
we have jobs.
Right.
And, you know, that process, all of those steps are there for a reason, is to prevent people from becoming infected and dying.
Yeah.
So
And
what do
yet
you
and still people die. Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
do you do? Okay. Your department is working fine, right? So everybody knows your algorithm basically. So everything's working well. The OR is happy. We don't get any in services. We don't get any education. Boom, we have like 5 bioburdens in 1 week. All of a sudden, everybody's down here. We see the director, we see the surgeon,
Oh yeah.
we get education in services, everything's coming down. We know this is going to last for a few weeks. And afterwards, it's just going to die back down because everything is going to go back to normal because we're very, very efficient. So, what do you say to leaders or managers who have that model of I only educate and incentivize my team when things go bad? You
Oh,
know,
those are not leaders.
Mm, definitely,
Go ahead,
definitely, I agree.
Selendra.
Oh,
Speak on it.
yeah, those are
Speak
not
on it.
leaders. Yeah, I mean they're reacting to situations, and that's not what leaders are supposed to do. So that doesn't even make sense.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, obviously she's 100% right. And again, this is what I do for a living, so I see this kind of stuff all the time. And I can trace more than 90% of the issues that we have in sterile processing departments, maybe a little less than that, to the process. And where does that process come from? And who implements that process? Leadership is critical. It's important. It sets the tone. It informs everybody. You may not know that the CDC exists and that people actually die every year because of surgical site wound infections because of dirty instruments. I have to make sure people understand that and
Yep.
get that.
Yep.
Here's why we're here. This is bigger than us. So all this
Yep.
bickering and beef between shifts, somebody needs to step up and put an end to that,
Yep.
because that doesn't advance what we're here for. That doesn't help the patient. And that's why we're here. I would say to managers who aren't educating their staff appropriately, consistently, talking about the basics, reviewing the AMI guidelines with their staff when it comes to critical things like decontamination, inspection and assembly, sterilization. I would say they're missing an opportunity, and they're putting not only the patient's lives at risk, but also their own staff.
Yep.
If Bob ain't doing what he's supposed to be doing correctly in the decontamination, like you were saying about not using the sonic, he could be exposing Susie, who
Mm,
has some kind of an issue with her health,
Yes.
to something else that could really affect her. So, yeah, leadership is important. And again, leadership sets that tone. Here's how we rolling in this department, right? Here are our principles. Here's why we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. So I would say to those people, D, that they're missing an opportunity and putting their staff and their patients at a serious disadvantage.
Yeah, and I
They're
definitely
not
agree with
leading.
you. I definitely agree with your point because when things, I don't, on a larger scale, I don't think managers um, realize the impact they have on the team on a regular basis. Like if you totally ignore your team when everything is good and you think, okay, this is just gonna happen all the time, and you only pay attention when things go bad or when you have 500 trays on the shelf and then now you want to hand out pizzas, um, I think you kind of miss the boat on a lot of things, and people can see, okay, this person isn't going to recognize us and until this department is going down.
Yep.
When things are going good, they're not around, leaving early, coming in late. I haven't seen him or her in 2 weeks. I don't know what's going on
Living that good
now.
life, huh?
Yeah, living
Yeah.
I living the good life.
Yeah.
Now we backed up. Now you have every day. Now you on the floor. Now you
Yeah.
watch it. Now you want to know how to sterilize. You never paid attention to how our loads go in. All of a sudden now you're looking at our trays saying, "Oh, it should be 1 inch apart." Where were you last month?
Yeah.
So like
Get out of
looking
my way, please.
right,
Yeah. For
exactly. Where
real.
where
Literally.
where
You
were
know,
you
I
when
think
when we were hustling and
exactly.
we were getting it out? So I think managers need to realize their team does pay attention to those things, and just being a crisis manager, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, People realize that you're not really invested in the team. You basically only you here to solve problems because your upper management is coming down on you and telling you, hey, you got to get this fixed or else, and now you coming down on us or your team saying, hey, you need to get this fixed or else. So people kind of feel that vibe, and I don't think.
Yeah,
And
managers.
mhm.
No, I was just going to say managers have to be proactive. Some sense you have to put yourself into the future. You really have to think that way. Because I don't know how much you guys know about football, but there's a cornerback position
Which
or a
one? Which one?
safety.
The real football or?
American
Oh
football,
no,
not
man.
soccer.
Okay, all right. Okay, okay.
The Rams, the Cowboys.
Oh, that's not football. But anyway,
Selendra, you have a team?
No, I do not watch
No?
football.
Okay. You talk about soccer, the little
no,
black
that's
and
Yeah,
not
white
I see
ball
foot.
that they
No,
kick around.
yeah, that's the real.
They call that football, but that's the fake football.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Oh my
How you
lord!
spell right?
Oh, blasphemy! Blasphemy!
Oh,
It's a beautiful game, though. But nothing like good old American football. But on the defensive side in American football, there's a position, there's a cornerback, and there's a defensive end, right?
Right.
The cornerbacks who are trying to prevent the receiver from getting into the end zone with the ball, right? Because if they do that, it's a touchdown, right? So where that a lot of times that defensive player, right? We're trying to stop the advancing bad stuff that could happen to our patients, that could happen to our departments. We're trying to keep them at bay. We have to be proactive and we have to know that some of these things are going to come up and have plans in place to address them, right? I mean, management is no easy task. The other thing I did want to say is there's some wonderful experience and great managers out there running sterile processing
oh yeah.
departments. And I tip my hat to them. And they're running departments that are huge and busy, and they do a wonderful job with their staff. And I commend them. But there are also managers that need to step up their game. And I think that's important to say. Because
Yeah.
again, a lot of the issues we see, D, it goes back to leadership. It goes back to leadership. And if they're only around when there's an emergency, and trying to train when everything has blown up.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't come across as being very genuine. And like you said, they don't appear to be to the staff as invested as they should be.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
So we're going into
Okay.
news you could
Was that an
use.
overtime?
All right. Right.
We're
Clock
good.
out.
So Selendra, get ready.
Oh my
News you
God.
could use coming
Okay.
up in a few seconds.
I'm back already. Oh
Yes,
my God.
ma'am.
Okay. So normally, I mean, this week there was a lot of news that you could probably use, and I had put it on SPD Talk. But since it's Black History Month, and I haven't really said a lot of things about Black History Month on this platform, and I did want to bring a few things to your attention because you can definitely use this. And I want to bring to your attention that there are race-based algorithms in healthcare that affects African Americans in a negative way. And there's a few of them, but I'm only going to give you a couple of them because my time is limited. So one of them I wanted to talk about is called the VBAC. It's a vaginal birth after C-section, and it disproportionately affects Black women because, as you know, the mortality rate for Black women and their babies after birth is 3 times higher than their white counterpart. So, and also, you know, that C-sections, you know, leave you at a higher risk of infection and complications. So to have a vaginal birth is better for you. So when they use the usually, I wouldn't say deny, but it kind of does deny a woman identifies as being African American the opportunity to have a vaginal birth if she has previously had a C-section. Now, if she's a white woman, then her chances of being able to have another vaginal birth increases. It's like they give her that option. And then there's another, the American Heart Association, they have something called guidelines, a heart failure risk score. And what they do, this helps them predict death. So how it works is patients are given 3 points on the scorecard if they do not identify as African American. These extra points can increase the patient's chance of being referred to a specialist. The patient that identifies with being African American has less of a chance of being referred to a specialist because they are not considered to be at risk for death. So a lot of people are referred, for a dying. Last thing, since we mentioned football tonight, this is another one that's very interesting with the National Football League. They use something called race norm formula to determine the severity of football players' concussions. So African American football players are more likely than white football players to be denied monetary relief or medical care for the same cognitive function when they use these algorithms. And I think a couple of football players were going up against the NFL because they were saying pretty much that Black football players inherently are pretty much low in cognitive abilities at the start of their career. So the fact that their numbers may be lower after these concussions is normal because there is anyway. I mean, that's how I took it, kind of offended. Like they're saying they have low cognitive ability. So it's a couple more out there, and if you just pretty much Google it, I'm sure you can find this information. And that's all I have for the news you can use.
Hey,
I think that was the
Selendra.
best segment tonight.
Mama,
Great. I did have on your news you could use the report you had on births, vaginal births. I did hear something about that recently,
Yeah.
a few months ago. That the way they determine C sections, it's
Yes.
more it sways more to African American women than Caucasian women or any other race. The
Yeah.
way the application or the questions that are asked in the forms
Yeah.
are more geared to um, having African American women have C sections. And then I have
Yeah.
to look up that article. But I found that it was really disturbing. Find that out. And that's why in my facility, I keep wondering, like, why another C-section? Why? What's going
Yeah.
on? But I definitely understand that report. Um, Pernell.
No, I think very good information. And those, I mean, it's all about algorithms today, man.
Yeah.
They program the computers, artificial intelligence is involved.
Yeah.
And, I'm not in favor of anything that impacts marginalized groups in a negative way. So although I don't know much on the specifics of these, specific cases, um, I certainly hope that there are people out there who are advocating on African Americans' behalfs in these areas. I know the NFL, they have a very strong union for the
Mhm.
players, their player association. So I'm sure they're, hopefully they're involved in that. But
Uh,
very
I,
interesting and timely information for sure.
I disagree with that NFL reference.
Oh.
That union is not strong. I do not believe it's a strong union. I believe the union is might be paid off by the owners, because
Uh-oh.
those contracts are horrendous, and I believe that's the only major sport that the contracts are not guaranteed. So you could cut someone today and just say bye, and they get what they got, and you keep whatever you whatever you were supposed to give them on your end. So I don't believe the players union, on another, and that's a whole different sports note, uh, is that effective
Well,
for the NFL.
Selendra, I'm
Yes.
one and one. He agreed with one of my points,
Yeah.
and
He
he
didn't agree. I
disagreed with
like
the
that.
NFL point. I'm
Yeah,
fine with
Yes, I
that.
like it.
yeah, and I think that's at a
I like
disadvantage.
guaranteed contracts myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I like those. I like
Yeah.
those. I like those. Um, so we're going to go into our next segment, which is one of my best segments. Uh-huh. Let's get into
Hey,
this
your
really
best
quick.
segment.
Yes, it is. So, on our relationship segment tonight, we're going into um, a shift issue. So let me continue my music just for one more second.
What year did that come out?
Oh, was that the
I have
80s?
no idea.
Yeah. I want to say that
But
was around 85, maybe 86.
Okay.
hmm.
I remember that
Yeah.
song.
So my question from anonymous source. Basically, I give relationship advice during the segment, and
Oh,
yes,
Multifaceted, this guy right here.
yes,
yeah.
yes. So I did one. I not a psychiatrist, but I did save a bunch of money on my car insurance. Um, so so
You
so
need to
this
hook me up.
question is
I could
from
save some
anonymous.
money.
So this person says, I work second shift, and third shift always has an issue with what we do. What can I do to improve the relationship? So, what do you think? What's that person supposed to do if the third shift or the next shift coming up always has an issue? How do they improve that?
Oh,
Anybody?
I talked to him. I mean, it actually happened to me before. I was on a travel contract, and the hospital, the department had never had travelers before, so there was already beef because I was there. So it's like who she thinks she
Mm,
is, and I came in there, and then I was there to be the lead tech on second shift with a bunch of people who had never worked in sterile processing department. So there was beef, and I pulled them to the side. I put them to the side collectively, and I put them to the side individually, and I let them know, like, hey, I understand this is your territory. I'm just here to support you and get you where you're trying to go. And pretty much that's what I did, and that's where I left it. The communication opened up a little bit more, but I mean, it was a 13-week contract. But my biggest thing is to identify, acknowledge that there's a problem, communicate with the people that you have the issue with, and it's worked for me in the past.
good.
Yeah, it's one of those issues ever since I've been in still processing. beef between shifts. The day shift is always going to come in on certain days and feel like, what the hell did they do last night?
Yep.
What happened? What the
Yep.
hell? I'm not feeling good right now.
Right.
Right, right, right.
I mean, that's SPD.
Yep.
And so whenever there's bickering, between the two shifts, again, I'm getting in my helicopter
Yes.
and I'm taking that wide view. Why is this happening? What's going on? Who's not involved? Who should be involved, right? So one shift should never or shouldn't have to go to the other shift and what process. There should be a process in place. Is there a lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as that lead is communicating with the supervisor of the department, and letting them know what's going on, that's what's important. A turnover should be a turnover, okay?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what's going on, blah, 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 here's what it is. This is your job, whether there's 50 trays left or whether there's 5. A lot of times, people are not just thinking about what may have happened. They just, oh man,
Yeah.
why they leave all this for us? And they don't know that last night they were dealing with X, Y, and Z. Again, somebody has to set the tone and say, hey, here's how we operating here, okay?
Right.
Here's what the turnover is going to be like from the from the PM shift to the night shift. If there are issues, here's how we address them. So again, there shouldn't be this bickering and beefing. This is where leadership steps up and puts a process in place to handle the situation. And then if it keeps happening, you may have an issue with staff. Maybe you have some folks that, don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And one thing you said, the supervisor communication. So basically, you'd probably get a report, and the thing is the communication between the supervisor and the technicians. So the supervisor will get the report. Hey, a washer broke down last night, a sterilizer aborted, a load aborted.
They shut
We
down
had
the steam.
Right. We had quick turnarounds, and then that's not communicated to the team at all. So they're walking in there thinking, you had everything perfect.
Yeah.
I washed that tray last night. It's still on the rack clean. Like how,
Yeah, the night shift is just like, I'm out.
right.
Gotta take my kids to school.
Right. So,
they're gone.
why is that? That I've been watching that tray for 2 days, is in the same
Yep.
spot, with the same integrator in it. Somebody tried to do it, didn't finish it. So
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, am I the only person that knows how to do this tray? So
Mhm.
people get it like, and that's why I think the supervisors need to pay attention to the intricacies. I know you have your paperwork, your reports, and all that, but I think supervisors need to walk around the department. If a tray is on the shelf for 2 days and it's a priority tray, I think it's a supervisor or manager's responsibility to pinpoint that. Especially if you have a tracking system, you should know that this tray has been there sitting. Or you should walk by and like, oh, I know this is a priority tray. Let me hand this out, or let me find out the discrepancy. Is it missing an instrument? Do I need to call a rep, find out if they could fill it up, or can it go up with a missing instrument? Like, I think supervisors, as you said, from the upper level, I mean, you need to survey your department and know what's going on, because
Well,
sometimes,
again,
Mhm.
and anticipate, right?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
listen. Everybody knows in your department you're going to have some one-of-a-kind trays, right?
Yep.
And you're going to have some critical trays that cannot be down, right? So there has to be education on that. Hey, here are the one-of-a-kind trays that can't be down.
Yep.
If nothing else goes up, this burr hole tray, or if you're in a larger facility, this comeback hard tray, right?
Mhm.
We only have X amount of these. They have to be turned over and put up. Unfairly or not, I link everything back to leadership. I've always been a huge fan of having shift leads because my leads, part of my leadership team, they see and know what's going on because I've set that expectation. When I come in here, I either need a really good answer for why this is like this, right? Or this, it needs to be taken care of. Supervising from your desk in a sterile processing department, depending on how the department is set up, can be really challenging. I like to have people right there, rubbing elbows, seeing what's going on. I've had my best success with that kind of a setup where there are leads who are an extension of the team. I think that helps.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And also, I think the dynamics of the shifts. I know some people work certain shifts for a long period of time, but they do not know, like, third shift won't know the dynamics of the first shift, or,
Yeah.
That's
or
right.
first shift won't know dynamics of the second shift. Like, oh, what did you do all day? Like, there's no education
Yeah.
on what happened or what happens during the shift. There's
Yeah.
no education, and I think that's I'm a big proponent of education. Also, there's no education on what goes on throughout the day. The one shift has no idea what the other shift does, and I think that that's a leadership thing too. You need to educate on, hey, if you don't do all the orthopedics on your shift, the next shift is going to have to work strictly on orthopedics, and we work on all the general cases because we don't have that many cameras and scopes, and we have to be turning those around all day. So, like, you got to set the expectation, and teams have to know what the other segment or the other portion of the department is doing, so that all that bickering won't be, or there'll be some understanding of what went on previously. So it won't be is that a good sound or a bad sound?
It was a
It's
phone. Keep
Oh.
going. I'm sorry.
it's all good.
so um so I let me go back to an example. Back in my history, so we would pull cases, and there would be would pull maybe 60, 70 cases, right, for
Hmm.
the shift.
This night
And
shift you're
then
talking about?
no, that's
Okay.
the second shift.
Okay.
I don't want to give everything away, but we'll pull, we'll pull definitely, we'll pull everything. But then we would leave the add-on cases would be about five, and then we'd still, and the next shift would be like, why didn't you pull the add-on cases? you know okay, we were focusing on first, second cases, and the add-ons come up later during the day. So but we got everything done, and the add-ons, we just left five add-ons for you. We was just making sure the first and second, the first cases were done, and everything else was done. So all the scheduled cases are pulled. We just left the add-ons for you. You have 8 hours, maybe you could do that then. Oh my god, they left five cases for us. Why didn't they pull everything? You get a you get a situation like that. And I
Yeah.
think just communication, especially from the supervisor level, because I think on another level, technicians, you may not be able to explain that to somebody just walking in. Like, hey, this is the situation. This is what we had to work with. We only had two people pooling. We had trays come up late to fill the case cards, etc., etc. We had calls for trays that needed to be on carts that got taken out that had to come back up. There's certain dynamics that I believe on a higher level need to be communicated to the team, and and as I said earlier, you won't be assuming that, as I give the four stop intersection, like, you won't be assuming that this one wants to go, or this person is going, or this person came first. Like, it'll be total open transparency that this is what goes on, and this is what we expect coming on the next shift. Because if you set expectations too high, say, okay, all cases pulled every night regardless, then the next shift will come in and say, hey, it's written down. You're supposed to pull every case regardless of what happens. You could have one person up here, every case needs to be pulled. So if you set your expectations too high, then people will refer back to, hey, this is the policy. Everything's supposed to be pulled, or this is the new process. And why wasn't it done? Then everybody becomes a supervisor. And then
Or
you don't
people
want,
want to cut corners like Wells Fargo, because Wells
yeah.
Fargo had really high expectations, and as a result, people start cheating. and they start doing stuff that they shouldn't do. But I want to go back to the
Trying to
communication piece.
open 15
Yeah.
accounts for one customer.
Yeah, because
Mm.
their expectations were so high for their people, and they had to reach those goals, or I guess get the repercussions. So they started cheating. But then I want to go back to the communication piece because I mean, people do really wonder what the other shifts are doing. And then when you mention communication, there's other ways to communicate. So communication boards, so people be a little bit more informed. I've been in
Yeah.
departments where
Mm-hmm.
there was no communication boards. There was no
Mm-hmm.
boards to even say what we were doing on a monthly, yearly, how many trays we were assembling or anything like that. That's one. And then two, techs need to speak up because if there is a tray that's down or you notice that the sterilizer is not working, you need to tell your team leader or your supervisor. They could be caught up. They may overlooked it, but it's our responsibility as techs to speak up too and communicate to them what we need.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I mean, everybody has to do their part. And
Yes.
the technicians, like you mentioned, are going to be the first ones to notice if something is
Yep.
out of order. Yeah, I just think on the other hand, if I'm working for a facility and my job is to be a sterile processing tech, and I tell these, to when I've had employees, I want you to focus on your shift and what you're doing.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure that we have a process in place and I'll be involved to handle issues when they come up.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes what happens, and what has been my experience in some places, is people get way too involved. And like I think it was you mentioned that you
Mm-hmm.
have like everybody's a supervisor and it's
Yeah.
just a free for all. You know what I'm saying? And I guess I'll just take it right back to leadership and being proactive, and you as the leader of that department understanding, what, things like that are going to come up.
Right.
So how can I be proactive? How can I be that defensive back and get ahead of that? Let me put a process in place.
Right.
Okay? There will be a turnover between shifts. Person X will turn over to person Y,
Mm-hmm.
right? As soon as I get that, how many trays left, blah, 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 how many case cards not pulled. That should come to a supervisor or somebody to look over, and then they do whatever investigation is necessary.
Right.
Because what that does, it keeps everybody from going at each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So again, I just think managers, supervisors have to be more proactive. And like y'all were talking about just now, talk about those dynamics between shifts and that things happen. Okay.
Right.
But we have a process in place to address issues when they come up. If you think they've been leaving all these trays and there should be a process for you to communicate that.
Right.
Because you get 3, 4 people talking about it, and before you know it, you got
Oh.
people calling off and all these other things.
Oh yeah. And I want to add to that too, because you made a point that they should know that leadership is gonna take care of, the things that come up. And that
Mhm.
makes me think about trust. People should be able to trust their leader. And I think that
Yes.
has a lot to do with the fact they don't trust they're gonna do what needs to be done. They don't trust that the work assignments they have are fair, or they don't trust, the different shifts are doing the same thing. So yeah, trust is a big piece. If you got a leader you can trust in, definitely you just worry about what's on your shift because the leadership's going to handle the rest.
Right. And you know what? And that's why people leave.
Yeah.
And that's why you have turnovers in some departments.
Yeah.
Because people don't really leave their jobs, they leave their managers.
That's right.
So, a lot of departments out there are, in different stages. Some are very well ran, the majority are very
Mm-hmm.
well ran. And then you have, people who aren't being the most effective leaders. And then
Right.
you have all these kinds of issues that can happen.
Right.
But again, somebody has to set the tone in that department for how we're going to operate. How are we communicating? How do
Right.
we resolve issues when they come up? And if that's clear, and like you said, someone that they can trust, then that manager will get the buy-in for
Yeah.
for his plan for whatever their process is.
Okay. I like that. Now I have a question too. Stereo MD, I hope I can ask a question because I want to ask Pernell a particular question that's on my mind when we were dealing with the bioburden because I all I know the manager set the expectation and the tone. How does the OR play into the piece? And I feel they do with the issue with bioburden. You being a former scrub, it the fact that the instruments need to be handled a certain way before they even get to the decontamination room. And I'm kind of trying to figure out, I know we're in sterile process and we need to worry about our area, but how do you communicate or I guess educate when it comes to the OR and how these instruments shouldn't come down with this gross bioburden on them?
Well, in a lot of cases, when we go out to look at departments who may not have passed a JACO inspection or they're getting a lot of dirty trays, um, one of the first areas we look at is the OR.
Okay.
Because as you guys know, decontamination actually starts in the operating room.
Right.
All scrub technicians are trained that way. They're trained that decontamination starts with them. And so as the surgical procedure is happening, what the technician is supposed to be doing is keeping the instruments that have just been used clean. The goal is so that there's not a buildup on the instruments, right? So you're absolutely right. The first step in any successful decontamination process is what the operating room does and how sterile processing receives those trays, right? And there are best practices out there, The instruments are to be kept moist.
Yes.
Then you need to use some kind of an enzymatic agent, foam spray or something to cover the instruments. That helps to start, break down the bioburden. Those instruments should be covered and they should be neat and organized, right?
Right.
So that when they come into the decontamination space, you're not trying to fight to find all the instruments and this and that. So we approach the directors of surgery, the OR manager, and we talk about their policies and procedures having to do with taking care of the instruments.
Okay.
So you got to make sure that they have the appropriate policies and procedures, right? Amy's very clear about what those are. Again, their best practices, AORN. But it starts in the operating room. You're 100% correct.
Okay.
And a lot of times what we have to end up doing is conducting some serious training with the operating room staff
Okay.
to make sure that they're doing their part correctly because it's a very important part.
Okay.
So Pernell, the operating room doesn't want to do more work. They're trying to get these rooms turned around as quick as possible. Every minute costs room time, operating room time, or block time, basically. So how do you get to convince them? Hey, we want you to spend the extra 2 minutes wiping down your instruments and spraying them with enzymatic. How do you do that? Because I have that. I have come across that issue recently, and
Yeah, so D, it's really not a matter of convincing.
Okay.
In our world, we operate from best practice, standards, guidelines, and they're very specific and very clear and universal. So there is an appropriate way, there's one right way for the operating room to treat instruments after the surgery. They have to be clean, not,
Right.
completely clean, but they have to be free of gross
soil.
debris, right? Of gross soil. They need to be organized. Depending on your policies and procedures, the sharps need to be separated appropriately, so on and so forth. They need to be transported in a case card, what have you. So I guess the answer to your question is there is no debate on how instruments are supposed to be treated prior to getting to sterile processing. Um, if any OR is fighting back against that, then there's some real serious issues going on.
Yep.
Hmm.
It's not a choice. There's no
Nope.
debate. I mean, this is how. It's just like us following IFUs. We don't get to pick and choose on that IFU. Well, we kind of, let's just skip the Sonic today. I mean,
Right.
we don't get to do that.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Some
Too
people
much
just
agreement.
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want too much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. But I do like your way of looking at the presentation to the OR of this is just how it simply has to be done. There is no convincing, as you said. This is the best practice. So
A lot of times, the reason it takes consultants like myself to come in and to help, departments get over the hump is because a lot of times you have these two departments where, although we've made a lot of improvements
Mm-hmm.
in the SPD OR relationship, there's still some departments out there that they clash on an ongoing basis, right? That happens. It's a part of some people's reality. The communication isn't always what it should be.
Right.
But it sometimes takes an outside set of eyes and an outside voice to get both parties to kind of see what they need to see.
Right.
And that's why there's a market out there for people who do what I do.
Yeah.
Sterile processing is one of the biggest risks that there are out there to hospitals
Yeah.
and surgical centers. So, um, hospitals who know what's going on want to do their best to ensure that they have good leadership and that they have good support. And again, that's where people like myself and a lot of other people who do this for a living, that's what keeps us employed.
Yeah.
yeah, and thanks to our viewer for staying on. Appreciate it.
How many
Um,
people we got out there?
we have one right now. We had
Oh,
up
That's
to
good.
five or
one.
six. Yeah, we had up to 5 or 6. So I just want to recognize them and say thank you for
Very good.
watching
Oh, yes.
and sitting through with us. We really appreciate it. So any last comments, any last words? We've been going. Really like the topics. Um, I think we
You
approach it
picked some
from a
good ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we approached it from a good standpoint, and I think we gave some good information. I wasn't as funny as I hoped, but hopefully on the
You had
next
me
one,
cracking up, babe.
I will get some good. I will definitely get some good. I'll be googling some good stuff, um,
Yes.
and the next show will even be better. I'm
Okay.
definitely trying to get my audio better, so I'm working on a couple things, and Pernell, anything you want to promote? Anything going on with you? You want to let our viewers know on your end?
Yeah, well, I just let anyone who's interested in taking sterile processing courses in the Southern California area to just Google Central Sterilization Solutions. We provide online classes as well as live classes. We do one-on-one tutorials for people who are interested in that. We also have a consulting team that go into sterile processing departments and work with them to become better. So Central Sterilization Solutions
I got it.
is where we are.
Okay.
So Central Sterilization Solutions,
CSS.
CSS.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. So, um, Selendra, anything going on your end?
Oh, let me see what I have going on. The SPD talk I just started where I just do straight news that's related to sterile processing or healthcare, and that's pretty much it. In the podcast, I on SPD. That's all I
Nice.
got going on. And then, of course, by ionspd.com, where it's just a plethora of resources you can use, whether you're trying to get into leadership or you're traveling as a sterile processing tech, or you need your CE units. I have links to everything that you possibly could need, I believe, as a sterile processing tech that can get you going to the next phase or stage in your career.
Awesome. I had a question about that. Whose eye is on that picture?
It's not mine. Where did I get that from? I forgot. I obtained it legally. Look, I'm no copyright
Let
infringement.
me edit that.
But yeah, I went to an open source and got that eye.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I was like, she's getting good at editing now. She's
Yes.
stepping
I
her
just
game
recently
up. I'm
changed
like,
that eye. Yeah. I spent a lot of hours trying to figure out stuff, and hopefully soon I'll be able to, be like Pernell and employ people and have a team of people. I'm working toward that. Yes,
Hey,
I'm
man,
working hard
that's the
towards
goal.
that.
That's the goal.
Yes.
All about that
Yes.
incremental progress. Yeah.
Yes.
And now I have someone to bounce ideas off of when my editing is is not where I want it to be. So yeah.
What do you guys use for editing?
What I like phone apps. So it just let me give some good information to those people watching the end of the show. This is where you get all the good stuff.
Okay.
So I like phone apps. The computer is great, but I always have my phone on me. So I always do research on what apps or how I could get stuff done on Android. So I know people, like the iPhones, but I always look for, okay, this is what this is. What app does the same thing on the cell phone? So for my video editing, like I think I have a video in here. I will try to play. Did I download it? Give me a second. No, I didn't download it. So I use Power Director for my small short videos. I also use Insta Shot. It's like an Instagram. It has a play on like Instagram videos. So INSHOT. If you want to edit a video really quick, add music, add a soundtrack to it, that's the easiest way to get that done. Also, the best place to go to get new to edit a quick video, which I did this one. And this took me about 3 minutes to create. It's Placeit, PLACIT. No, sorry. Just now. Let me get that right. It's called PLACEIT. Yeah, Placeit.net.
Are those free apps?
Placeit, I believe you need to register. There might be a subscription. I have registered. I have tried so many apps because what I'm looking for is comfortability and easy access. Because I do mostly everything on my phone, and the only time I go to the computer if the app doesn't fully give you all the options you need. Because there are some programs you have to, okay, it's good, but they let you know you can only access certain features on your phone. But if you go to the computer, you get 100% of what we offer. So that's the only time I do that. There's also a website called, I'm giving you a lot of, whoever is watching now, you're getting a lot of information you're getting a lot of information I spent hours on. There's another site called ESL. This site will give you your overlays for
How do you spell that? ESL? I like that map.
Did he freeze? Did I freeze?
I think he might be working on a different app. Can you hear me, Selendra?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying I like that map behind you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Amazon. Before
Okay.
that was pre-COVID. I had gotten that because I started putting places I wanted to go or had already been, but
Okay.
it's empty.
Yeah. Got it
I'm
laid
just
out. So where you
yes.
headed next?
You know what? I think COVID is over. I feel bad because I don't want to go to Africa first. I want to go to
Oh,
Australia for some reason.
okay.
I want to go to Australia and Amsterdam for the debauchery. I want to go there
Mm,
because
I hear
I
you.
feel like a little bit anything.
I
Like
hear
go to
you.
Amsterdam.
Well, I've been really fortunate. I've been to both places.
Really?
Yeah. When I was in the Navy, I was Perth, Australia is one of the places where the ships sometimes stop.
Uh-huh.
Perth and Brisbane. Um, yeah, really, really, Australia is really cool. Yeah, real friendly people.
In Amsterdam, is
And
it
that, yeah, Amsterdam was,
Amsterdam?
um, yeah, I mean, whatever you want,
Yes.
Amsterdam is there, and it was a cool experience. Yeah, I
Oh,
definitely enjoyed it. Yeah,
oh wow. So you say you guys are in Southern California, so like the Long Beach or Inland Empire, LA County, Orange County area?
all that, LA.
Okay.
So when we say Southern California, we're basically talking about from LA on down
Okay.
towards San Diego. Yeah, so LA,
Okay.
Orange County, all that, Inland Empire, all that. Yeah,
Okay.
the most populated part of the state. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's
Mhm.
I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I'm in
Mm.
Georgia now. I'm in the most southern part, I guess, of Georgia now, or southwest part of Georgia. But I had gotten my training in Long Beach because that's how I got into processing was they had a paid training program that turned into an externship, and I got certified and started working in
Were you at Long Beach Hospital?
yes, Long Beach Memorial.
So do you know a Kathy Simpson?
Say that again.
Kathy
All right,
Simpson.
guys. All right,
No,
guys.
that was about, I don't, wait a minute. Was she there
Was
9 years ago?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. Kathy definitely.
All right, guys. This is the end of the show, and we will be coming back to you next week, Wednesday. And we'll be doing an interview on the weekend on Saturday. So stay tuned, and I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. See you on